This is how to install your CryptoPay button in pure JavaScript. For your convenience, in the Build tab, you can scroll down and you'll see that there are a few different options for you to follow depending on your tech stack. For most people, you are likely going to use this JavaScript option just because, for the most part, with a lot of different website editors, there is going to be some location where you will be able to add this simple script tag where you will be able to update it with your different parameters, and that's it. So with the JavaScript, what you're going to do is you can just copy and paste this in to, let's say, for purposes of this example, I'm going to be using a code editor, but you'll just know that depending on what particular site you're using, whether it's Shopify, whether it is Squarespace, or just any platform that you can think of, you're going to copy and paste this tab depending on what their instructions are, where you just kind of drop this script in. But for purposes of today's tutorial, I'm going to show you the simplest one, which would just be if I had an HTML page and I wanted to inject some JavaScript, this is how I would do it. So here you notice that we have a very simple HTML file. You start with your HTML tag, you have your head, you have your body. What you're going to do with that script tag is you are just going to paste it in. And that's basically it. You're done. I told you it was pretty simple. Everything else, you just have to make sure you plug in whatever your API key was. So in order to find that, you're going to go to your settings and you're going to plug in that API, whatever it is, right? This is what basically is going to identify your button from everyone else's with this API key. Your product key is going to be the unique identifier that you used for your product, whatever it is. I'm going to come back to the container selector, but for email and shipping address, you have two options. You can either write required, just like this, all lowercase, or it could just be empty, an empty string like this. I prefer just null if you don't want to, or you don't need to accept the customer's email. Now, I fully recommend asking for the email, just because if you provide an email, you will be able to send them email updates when their purchase is successful. However, depending on what your business model is, it might be something where you want to tell your customer, hey, we don't keep any of your information. We don't even keep your email, right? Let's say payments are meant to be made completely anonymous. That is a good example of when you would, not need to require an email. But in most circumstances, you might just leave that required. Shipping address. This is, if you have a physical product to store, in most aspects, people are going to leave this null, right? But if you do leave it as required, basically what you'll notice is that it will ask you for your address line 1, address line 2, your city, state, or province, and postal code and country. Those fields will show up on your payment processor if that is required. But if not, leave it null. Your label is basically the text that appears on the button. So whatever you want to call it, pay with crypto, or whatever. You can get as creative as you want with the label, right? Or you could just have it be pay now. Now, container selector. You'll notice in this particular document that I have, this particular file, there's only this script within the body. And so what that will look like, it will just look like a button floating on white space, right? That's not really realistic in terms of how a website would look. More often than not, you are going to have something like, you're going to have a bunch of divs, you're going to have, some header tags, you're going to have just all sorts of stuff, right? And so what this container selector is for is if I want my button to appear in a particular div, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it an ID, and I'm going to say, just call it button container. It doesn't matter what you call it, right? But what this is going to look like for different platforms, like especially if you have a what you see is what you get type platform, usually what they'll have is if you need to specify where the button should go, what you're going to do is you're going to have to find the particular ID of the div that you're going to add the button to. And it will, once it identifies the ID, this script is automatically going to put it right in there, right? It's going to put it right in that div. And the way we accomplish that is we just give it the same name. Button container. And that's what your container selector is for. So very important for the people who are using pure JavaScript. Now there's one additional item that you need to add just to make sure everything looks nice. And you'll notice down here, there is a styles tag. All you're going to do is you're going to copy that and you're going to paste it inside of the head. At the time of recording, the current version is this 1.13. You just want to make sure that these versions match, but that's basically it. So what that's going to do is that's going to give you the correct styles. I didn't mention this earlier, or I skipped it over, but for style, you can also add whatever you want for styles as a string. So inside of here, if I wanted to do like background color, it would be, call it red or something like that. That's how I would do the style, right? But for the most part, if you just want the standard black button, you would just leave that null.